Here's exactly how I got access to $376,000 as a non-US business owner, non-US resident, without relocating to America and without changing citizenships. See, most non-US business owners believe that accessing US credit as a non-US business owner is illegal or not even possible. So instead of looking for solutions, they sit on the sidelines looking at their US competitors beat them because they've got access to superior financial tools, getting financial advantages like 0% interest credit lines, stronger cashback and rewards points. Meanwhile, most non-US residents are stuck paying full price with a debit card or a foreign credit card. And that's not sustainable for any business owner, especially if you're looking to scale up to 7 or 8 figures. But before we dive in, as a quick disclaimer, of course, this is just a YouTube video. We do not have any income guarantees or guarantees that you'll get access to any American credit. I always recommend you to seek qualified professionals for your specific situation, or you can just get in contact with our team. The most important thing is to break this limiting belief that just because you're a non-US citizen, non-US business owner, you believe that accessing US credit is out of reach, or it's impossible, or it's too complicated. And what I've noticed is that an entrepreneur will either sit in two places. They either have a US LLC, they have a Mercury bank account, and they just are stuck in that specific situation where they have a fintech bank that has a subpar corporate credit card. They've got their US LLC, they're paying 0% taxes. And that's one of the situations, which, by the way, is very limited. You don't got access to any credit. You don't have access to the American Express. You don't have access to any like really good credit cards. Or the other situation where you're literally locked out of the US financial system, you don't have a US LLC, you don't have a US credit card, you don't have US banking, right? And so for both of those types of people, there's just strategic moves that you will need to take in order to get to the position that I personally was able to get into, right? So just as a backstory, I personally used to be a Dubai resident. I'm a non-US citizen. I used to live in Canada, Canadian citizen, right? But I moved to Dubai to set up my tax residency over there because I wanted to pay 0% in taxes. Soon enough to realize that 0% taxes is not all that you need in order to actually scale a business. Paying less taxes is a defensive move so that you don't give so much money down to the government, but also accessing credit products and banking products is what allows you to scale along with high redemption credit cards and whatnot. So let's get into the steps that I took to access this amount of unsecured capital. So an important thing to note, before I even started accessing the American Express Platinum or the Chase Sapphire Reserve, I had to take a few other steps, which was setting up my incorporation, getting payment processors, getting business bank accounts, personal bank accounts, and all that kind of stuff. Let me break it down very simply. The first step is setting up your incorporation. Well, you might be like, well, I already have a company in Australia. I already have a company in the UK. Why would I want to set up an incorporation in the United States? Well, very simple, right? As long as you have non-US sourced income, you can pay 0% taxes with a US LLC as a pass-through entity into your parent company. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that, right, they run their businesses online. It's a fully remote operation. And a lot of non-US entrepreneurs, they have that US LLC as a pass-through entity. They pay no taxes because, of course, there's a few details that get them to qualify. They're a non-resident, non-citizen, right? So that's what allows them to essentially not pay any taxes due to US law. And so that's the first thing that you'll need to get. Along with that corporation, you're going to need a few things before even incorporating, which is your legal name, your business address, your email, the business email, a US phone number, and a website. And once you incorporate that US LLC, which, by the way, it should be a US LLC, right? Which is the step that I personally took. And it's not going to be a C Corp or a S Corp because in that context, then you'll need to pay US taxes. So a US LLC is what I opened up a few years ago. And I had all of those other details, such as the business address, the email, legal name, and whatnot. And then along with that then unlocked the next step, which is actually getting my ITIN. So getting the ITIN is a step that I believe a lot of entrepreneurs should be taking as soon as possible because the IRS takes a very long time to actually process these ITINs. So you might ask, like, what is an ITIN? Well, to take it very simply, when you get access to credit products, they're going to ask you this question: what is your social security number or your ITIN? And so those are the two options. If you live in the US, you're a US citizen, you give them your SSN. But since you're a non-US citizen, non-US resident, you're going to be giving them that ITIN. And what does that do specifically? Essentially, that ITIN or SSN is essentially connected to the credit bureaus that allows an issuer, right, like American Express or Chase Bank, to actually take a look at your credit profile and see like, oh, is your credit good or is your credit bad, right? And so to get that ITIN, it takes about 3 months to actually wait with IRS processing. So to get the ITIN, there's 3 ways to get it. I've broken that down in other videos, but to keep it very simple, essentially what you'll need to do is get a W-7 letter. You're gonna need to sign it. You're gonna need to have it notarized, and you'll send it to the Texas location to the IRS, and they'll essentially process that data and come back to you within about 3 months' time, or between 6 to 12 weeks or up to 18 weeks, and you'll get that ITIN. And matter of fact, let me actually show you my ITIN letter over here. This is the number basically directly from the IRS. But again, we got to prioritize the steps in a specific manner, right? You got to sequence your way to then actually unlock that level of unsecured capital, because to get access to a credit card like the one that I've got, $376,000 in total available credit, you can't just like choose to do one step and then go from here and there. Like, you've got to be organized, right? So the next step after getting your ITIN and the corporation is building your personal credit and getting personal bank accounts. Why is that important? This is actually the step that pretty much most entrepreneurs do not take. The reason why opening up a personal bank account and a personal credit card before you get business bank accounts and business credit cards is because you've got to establish your US financial identity with the big 5 banks. And so with our services, what we do is we essentially set people up with appointments into Chase Bank, into all of the big 5 banks. You open up a personal credit profile, you open up these personal bank accounts, and that's what starts the relationship with these big banks. And why is this important? Is because big 5 banks, the banks that actually give you access to a lot of money, they require a personal financial identity. They will ask for your ITIN, and essentially that ITIN is connected to your personal credit profile. Not to get too technical, but again, your personal credit profile is what you have on your ITIN. That ITIN is connected to the credit bureaus like Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, and you want to be able to have personal credit cards showing that you've got a personal credit identity in America. Doesn't mean you have to live in the US or pay US taxes. You just need to have personal credit cards that are connected to that ITIN that allow you to then unlock the next level, which is business credit cards. A lot of entrepreneurs think that I don't need a personal credit profile, like I'm just gonna go and get business credit cards. That is a huge mistake, because if you just go directly to get access to business credit cards, then you're gonna miss the best credit cards in the world, right? Because to get the Chase Sapphire Reserve, to get the best business credit cards, you need to have a personal credit identity which is connected to that ITIN. So that first step, building your personal credit profile, is very important. So what I had to do when I wanted to access this amount of capital is I ended up flying down to Miami. I ended up meeting up with a lot of different bankers. I was troubleshooting this whole deal because I was doing it for myself. And of course, then I built up this whole company. I had to take multiple trips and whatnot. Now at this point, our clients can literally take one trip and the rest of the process is done remotely. And we essentially scale their credit while they're out the country. And so when I went to Miami, I essentially attempted to open up personal bank accounts, personal credit cards. Then I went back to my home country, and that is where the credit building stage actually started. And so matter of fact, the reason why this part is so important is because the business credit cards that I have personally access to that have so much unsecured capital, it is based on the personal credit that I have that I actually built up. So you want to build it up properly, right? Where you've got a certain level of unsecured personal credit, you've got a certain level of credit utilization, and then you apply to the business credit cards. If you apply too early or too late, that's going to affect your approval odds when it comes to accessing this level of actual capital and the redemption credit cards, which, by the way, this credit building process can take up to 3 months or up to 3 years. And so it's very important that if you're a business owner, you're spending more than $10,000 a month, ideally you'd be introduced into the banks with the right people that are ITIN specialized reps so that you can decrease the amount of time that it actually takes to actually access the credit cards that you're looking for. And by the way, it's actually like a really important deal because you as a business owner, you spend a lot of money on ads or spend a lot of money on your business. Every month that you don't have that credit card, you're literally losing money, literally, because people with debit cards, foreign credit cards, every month you spend money on your travel expenses, on your business expenses. You're losing out on all the points. You're losing out on all this money that could be used for increasing your bottom line profit, meaning the cash back or the travel rewards, right? And so now let's move on to the third step, which is building your business credit. So just to make it very clean, again, like this YouTube video, it was meant to be very simple so you understand this process. You get your corporation, you get your ITIN, then you build personal credit, and then the last one is building business credit. And that's exactly what I did after 6 months of that trip. Then I started building business credit. And once my personal credit was at a certain level, which meaning my personal credit had about $10,000 in available personal credits within that 3 to 6 months time frame, that's when I then went to apply for business credit cards. And so when I applied for business credit cards, that's when I was getting 50K approvals, 100K approvals, 250K approvals, because I built up my personal credit. And when I applied to those business credit cards, firstly, there was already a relationship with the big five banks. And secondly, when they actually checked my ITIN to then give me access to these business credit cards, they saw that my personal credit profile was strong, right? And so that's exactly why I then got access to really strong actual approvals, the point that I was actually applying for these business credit cards. And so now at that point that I built up a personal credit identity, every 3 to 6 months, then I had an opportunity to then apply for more business credit cards where they would then allow me to get access to more capital, right? So just keep in mind what you're doing here, this whole process that I actually ended up doing, I was then able to build that personal credit profile that then is a constant pool of new capital that I can access because I had that personal credit identity. I can then apply for more business credit cards. I can apply for different types of loan products or whatnot because I had that personal credit identity set up. And so it's very simple. Like, as a non-US citizen, you might be skeptical thinking like, okay, firstly, this process sounds a bit complicated, which by the way, hopefully I actually broke down this process in the most simplest terms possible. But it's important to understand that the IRS literally created the ITIN in 1996 due to the fact that they wanted to allow foreign investors and people in foreign countries to actually access this credit system. And the fact that a lot of people are just skeptical, oh, I don't know if I can access these credit cards. What if I use the credit card in a foreign country? What if I use them to invest in a property in Canada or in a different country? It's absolutely possible. And there's a reason why they did the ITI. And there's a reason why there are laws that back you up, like the laws that prevent issuers to discriminate based on where you came from or your race and whatnot. So it's very important for you to understand that following through this process, you're going to get two things. You're going to get access to capital, which by the way, on the Amex Platinum, on the business Amex, I've got access to a lot of capital, which I can use to scale my business, right? Now, you might not be using all the money because you might have money in certain accounts, but that financial flexibility is what allows me to take more risks. Ideally, I'd like to have a bit of leverage that allows me to front cash when I need to do some aggressive amounts of spend. Now, of course, not everyone's spending money on ads. You might need to get more better talent in your team, or you might need to go and purchase more inventory, right? These are things that you can get access to when you're looking for business funding, right? Business funding is, of course, something that all companies typically look for. And the second thing, it is the redemptions, right? Every dollar that you spend with a foreign credit card or debit card, you're losing money. Like, it's straight up. We have a calculator in our landing pages that breaks down like how much money you're probably losing every single month by not having the right credit card. But anyways, that's basically how the process looks like. So look, I spent years believing that I was locked out of the American financial system, looking at my American friends take business class flights while I was paying full price for economy seats. But once I actually understood the real framework that you need to take legally to access these credit cards, everything changed. That's why you should watch this video breaking down why every non-US citizen business owner should actually access a US LLC to actually scale their business. In that video, I actually break down the legal reasons and basis which allows you to pay 0% taxes, which means taking none of the disadvantages of being in America while taking advantage of all of the positives that comes along with being an American. So watch this video. Hopefully you found value in today's video, and I will see you on the next one. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, support the channel. I'll see you in the next one.